when we go into this season knowing that Kevin Durant was not exactly walking arm in arm with Steve Nash. In fact, the direct opposite, which is I'm trying to not play for you this upcoming year. It was doomed from the start. Steve Nash has been let go as the coach of the Brooklyn Nets. I suppose they've worded it as a mutual parting of ways.
Which would be no surprise considering all the Kyrie stuff and all the drama, that it would be mutual.
Right. And we talked about this the other day after I had seen them in person. And, before the season, we had done our semi-bold predictions. And one of them was that Nash was going to be the first coach let go. And the reason I made that prediction is because I think I told the story then. Years and years ago, when I was covering QB Brown, he used to talk extensively about the importance of the relationship between the head coach and the best player. That if you're a coach, and he would always talk about this at the clinics he would do. If you're a coach, your best player has to be on your side. And 99% of the time in the NBA, when you see a coach that is let go or fired, and then I ask you, can you draw a line between the player and that coach? Do you think that the best player would have fought against this or would have had a problem with it? The answer is almost always no. And in fact, many times they are the agent for change in that it happening. And so when we go into this season knowing that Kevin Durant was not exactly walking arm in arm with Steve Nash, in fact, the direct opposite, which is I'm trying to not play for you this upcoming year, it was doomed from the start. And then when you get off to your bad start, you always get into the situation where when things are not going to expectation, general managers are going to say, it's not the roster. Roster's good enough to win. Coach is going to say, I can't coach. We don't have any rim protection. We don't have enough perimeter defense. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm playing, these guys the best way I know how. And so as a GM, you get to say it's the coach's fault once. And then
always the first scapegoat.
Yeah,
always.
And you can't get rid of the players, right? That's the hardest thing to do, to get rid of the players. And so when you're not reaching expectations, GM or the coach, the GM always wins it the first time around. And then if they still have their failings, then the GM will lose his job, right? If they don't meet expectations. But Nash being let go after a disappointing start, I mean, I know some people mock me like, that's not even semi-bold. But I mean, this team was still... I hope that everybody that doesn't think that was semi-bold went and bet the Brooklyn under, because they were like the third highest win total on the board in Vegas.
It would have been, really semi-bold, saying that the new coach would be Ime Udoka.
Okay, now that would have been like
asinine bold.
Yeah, I don't even
There's
know
no word.
The descriptor.
But Stephen A. in October, middle of October, Stephen A. Smith said that if the Celtics had fired Udoka, he thinks the Nets would have fired Nash and hired Udoka immediately. So he knew something back then in October.
Well, you remember when they played in the playoffs and Udoka beat them with that Celtics team.
And he was an assistant coach the year prior with the Nets.
Yeah. There were those stories that came out about how much they liked Ime Udoka.
KD,
and
Kyrie, all those guys.
Yeah, and how much he meant on their sidelines alongside Steve Nash. And Udoka clearly proved to be a very good coach for Boston last year. He also, beyond the being on that bench with these guys, so there's that prior relationship, you got to know there's a long-term deal with Marks, because it's all these Spurs guys, right? Mark's a Spurs guy. Udoka is a Spurs guy. They all come from that same lineage. And so there's like that's not just I from afar, I viewed this coach and I really respect him. He knows him. He worked, he was there in Brooklyn with them. He valued him so much, he hired him in Brooklyn to be on that bench. And then, of course, lost him to the Celtics, but now is bringing him back. And so thinks a lot of Udoka. There was never clear reporting on what actually took place with the Boston fallout, and here's me betting there will be clear reporting now.
I'd be surprised if we don't hear the clear reporting. All we know is for sure is that there was an inappropriate workplace relationship that broke a team rule, and that is the reason for the suspension. And then there was the harassment allegations. We don't know anything about that, but I'm sure in the coming days we would find out more about that, considering that he's back in the spotlight now. He's hired as a head coach while being suspended. It's surprising.